Today, the scenic wonders of New York's Finger Lake region are left to the imagination. Fog shrouds the area, and there's even a chance of rain. But rain or shine, we'll race today in famed Watkins Glen International in the New York Kodak 500. We'll see 200-mile-per-hour IMSA GT prototypes competing for 500 kilometers over this historic road course. Up front, a pair of bullet-fast BMWs. Starting on the pole, young Davy Jones hoped for better fortunes than those he found at Road America, where he suffered a violent crash early in the going, taking the Corvette GTP car out with him. Second row, former Formula One ace Jan Lammers joins Elliott Forbes Robinson in the Nissan. Alongside them will be Al Holbert, who could clinch his second consecutive series title today in his #1 Porsche 962. In row 3 will be the V8-powered Cosworth Probe in its maiden voyage, today piloted by Pete Halsmer and Tom Gloy. Behind Halsmer, starting in the 8th position and driving Al Holbert's usual car, is kart IndyCar champion Al Unser Sr. And finally, starting 12th in the 4-cylinder Mustang Probe, we find Trans Am and GTO superstar Scott Pruitt in his first ever prototype appearance. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Evans. Plenty of excitement up front for sure, but also some interesting stories in the middle of the pack. You'll recall that the Corvette GTP car was on the pole at Road America, but had some problems in qualifying. Doc Bundy will be co-driving with Cyril Vandermeer, but I understand you found the problem.
Yeah, the car is running great now. I think what we're going to do is just charge up to the front. See, actually, it was a planned problem.
Right.
We didn't want to run up front where you can get eliminated in the early laps. We'll let that all happen, then we'll just come on up, take over the checkered flag.
After watching Road America, that's maybe not an all-bad plan.
Absolutely. We didn't want it to happen that way, but that's the way it worked out. And you can watch us today, because we're definitely going to be charging.
Another car you wouldn't expect to be that far back is one of the Jaguars. Brock Yates has that story.
Well, Steve, starting in the 14th spot is a man who will begin his 160th IMSA race. Hurley Haywood, a true veteran of this sport, and a man who, as I understand, has won 20% of his IMSA starts. That's 1 win in 5. Hurley, you're going to start a ways back today, I imagine because of qualifying problems. So do you think that ratio of 1 to 5 can stand up today?
Well, I hope so. We've always had pretty good luck here at the Glen. The Glen seems to suit these cars, and we had trouble with the motor in qualifying, and we put back the little 6-liter motor, but I had this motor at Elkhart Lake, and we seem to do all right, so I think we'll do pretty good today.
Okay, and now, Steve, I know you're with another car that's starting relatively near the back and has also had a high success rate at IMSA.
Right, Brock. We saw this orange and white Porsche win at Sears Point earlier this year with Rob Dyson and Price Cobb. And Price, I know you'd rather start maybe a little further out.
Yeah, I certainly would, although I think that although we've had a few problems, the car's pace is a good race pace, and I'm looking forward to a good show.
All right, as we all are. Speaking of good shows, earlier today, the pole-sitting car, the BMW with Davy Jones, took our camera for a ride around this venerable old sports car circuit.
And one of the most famous circuits in the world it is, Steve. Been the scene of Formula One races and all kinds of great sports car races since it was created back in the 1940s. This is a new racetrack extended in the early 1970s for the United States Grand Prix. 3.37 miles, 11 turns, as we watch the number 18 BMW being driven by Davy Jones earlier this morning on a practice lap.
And I would imagine, Brock, that Davy Jones knows this course very well. He's from about 50 miles down the road in McGraw, New York. And you can see this morning how very foggy it was. They're not flying on instruments, but pretty close. The start-finish line at Watkins Glen is located at the top of the pit straightaway. In high gear, blasting down this straight rock to about 150 miles per hour, and into turn number 1, a tricky one.
Right, slightly downhill and to the right. Davy probably down into second gear, upshifting here past the old pit area and down through what begins the S's here at Watkins Glen. Uphill and up through the gears as Davy catches fifth gear just about here through a blind left-hand and right-hand S turn. And out ahead, the fastest part of the racetrack, Steve, the back straightaway.
And even though this straight is a little bit uphill, they still will knock on the door of 200 miles per hour. And you get a feeling here with the in-car camera how rough this old racetrack is.
Well, this is turn 5, Steve, a sweeping right-hander at the end of the straight, one of the highest parts of the racetrack. Now the course starts downhill into a stomach-turning section. This is turn 6, an off-camber left-hander heading down into a hollow.
and the area of the course they call the boot for its obvious shape. And right now heading down into a bank turn, which is the toe of the boot.
This is where big horsepower comes into play, because out of this corner, it's uphill, so a second gear corner pulling out, and raw horsepower in play here, Steve, on this short straightaway.
And now we travel through the sole of the boot, headed for the heel, which is turn number 8.
Yet another 90-degree right-hander, relatively simple corner as we watch Davey head up towards turn number 9. Now, this looks like a 90-degree left-hander. It's not. It's more than 90 degrees, and a rather tricky corner here at Watkins Glen.
And you won't hear drivers complaining about passing opportunities on this course. There's a lot of it, even in the tight turns 9 and 10.
It's a big, wide racetrack, Steve, as you see Davey move up on some slower traffic. And the final turn here at Watkins Glen, a very fast right-hander, turn 11, leading out onto the 140-mile-an-hour pit straightaway to complete a lap.
Plenty of excitement, and 11 turns in just 3.37 miles. Our thanks to Davy Jones and the entire BMW team for an exciting look at this racetrack.
And our congratulations, by the way, to Davey for setting a new lap record in the prototype class here at Watkins Glen at over 120 miles an hour average speed.
We've talked quite a bit, Brock, about the 18 BMW with Jones and Andretti. How about right alongside them, the great David Hobbs and Formula One veteran John Watson? They'll be a factor for sure.
That's an interesting combination. 2 veterans and 2 relative youngsters on that BMW team, and believe me, they will be formidable. On the front row, the pair of cars, and it'll be interesting to see how the old pros stack up against the youngsters.
And there's a very good reason why Al Holbert is in his number 1 Porsche instead of the usual number 14. This series offers an accumulative $10,000 bonus for a new car to get into the winner's circle, one that hasn't won this year. Well, it's now worth $40,000 because Holbert has been dominating so much, and he plans to scoop that up today if he can.
Well, once again, Steve, as in other IMSA races, we've got a race within a race. The GT Light cars, the production-based cars, unsupercharged, 3 liters and downward, are in this event. And Chip Ganassi and Bob Earl are leading that field with their Pontiac-powered prototype.
But just behind them, the number 63 car, Jim Downing and John Mafucci, they have a chance if they can score enough points to clinch the series title for GT Light here. And in that car today, I'm happy to say that we have an onboard camera. So that will give us 2. We'll be in this light car, and also, as usual, in the number 68 GTP Porsche, started by John Morton today to be co-driven by Darren Brassfield. We'll be right back with the start of the New York Kodak 500.
This special presentation of American Sports Cavalcade is being brought to you by BF Goodrich TA Radials, built for you to take on the road. And by Ford and your local Ford dealer, who invite you to see the 1986 Ford Cars and Trucks. Have you driven a Ford lately? And by Lowenbrau, brewed in the great beer-drinking countries of the world. This world calls for Lowenbrau.
We're just about ready for a start here at Watkins Glen. The 2 BMWs of Davy Jones and David Hobbs leading the field down toward the green flag.
And a rather slow pace as they creep up on turn number 11. Coming out of 11, they should be able to see the flag stand. And usually in IMSA competition, you get a start on the first pace lap. There it is. The green is out. 500 tough kilometers lie ahead. Doc Bunny predicted the 52 Corvette would move up fast. It is doing that. Look, Brock, the 52 car, Cyril van der Merwe, has already picked up position. The silver and black car just, gets a little bit off the course.
He did. Got a little crowded there in turn 1 as we watch Davy Jones in the BMW lead him up through the S's. Right behind him, his teammate David Hobbs, then the Nissan of Jan Lammers in 3rd place.
The number 52 Corvette with Van der Merwe right there has already moved up from the 15th spot to 9th. And here, head on, we look at the 2 BMWs coming right at us. The Nissan just behind them. And Al Holbert swings out trying to take 3rd from Jan Lammers in the Nissan car. Holbert moves up.
As they sweep down through turn number 5 and head into what is probably the most difficult part of this racetrack. Davy Jones got it opened up a little bit on Hobbs. There goes Holbert, then Lammers, and then in the 5th spot, that is the Ford Pro being driven by Pete Halsmer, Steve, with the Cosworth Indy engine on board.
And possibly Jan Lammers holding a little bit back, Brock, but that car doesn't appear right now to be performing as it did in qualifying. Boy, it was very, very quick. And look, there's Pete Halsmer, the red, white, and blue Ford V8 Pro, challenging the Nissan for that 4th spot.
And right behind him, the number 44 Jaguar of Bob Julius. So we got some interesting battles of makes up front. There was a little bump there, a bump and run by Hosmer as he moved by Lammers in turn number 8.
And now it is Dooley's in the 44 Jaguar. He is also getting around the Nissan. There's something wrong with that car.
No question, as Lammers is moving to the back pretty quickly in that Nissan. As you said earlier, the 3rd quickest qualifier in a very, very potent automobile. Okay, here comes Lammers coming down toward to complete his first lap, coming off turn number 11. Right behind him is Price Cobb in the Rob Dyson number 16 Porsche, and he may challenge to move up.
So the race right there for the 6th position. Jan Lammers in 6th. Just behind him, the orange, yellow, and white 962 Porsche with Tex and Price Cobb. And they're already up into the 8th position is the Corvette number 52, Sarl van der Merwe.
Van der Merwe coming up through the S's, really charging in that race car. Now that is a Lola built in England with a V6 Chevrolet-based turbo engine in it, so it's not really all that close to a Corvette in only in name. But I'll tell you what, it is one of the most potent automobiles, especially on the straightaways here at Watkins Glen.
How potent is it? The only car clocked on the straight rocket over 200 miles per hour in qualifying, and look at it fly now.
Well, we're getting readings from leader Davy Jones at about 190 miles an hour in that straightaway. So Van der Merwe has got almost 10 miles an hour on the next fastest car on that back straight as this battle for the 6th spot continues. Lammers right behind him, Price Cobb, and holding on back there after a charge to the front is Sarl van der Merwe in the Corvette.
Well, Lammers making it far more difficult for Price Cobb to pass than he did a couple of other cars, so maybe they're getting that machine. Uh-oh, we have got one of the probes. That is the 4-cylinder Mustang probe driven by Scott Pruitt, starting his first ever GTP race. It appears to be a very short day for him.
Boy, has this team been snake bit this year, Steve. These cars just, in more trouble. That's the 67 Porsche 962 of Jochen Mass, part of the Jim Busby team. He's in, and they've opened up the door to check and see something in that cockpit. That is a premature stop, quite obviously. You can see the rear hood section coming off. The crew going to work on the engine. So poor old Jochen Mass, who started 7th and one of the great veterans of this kind of racing, has won all over the world in these kind of automobiles. He's parked for the time being.
Crew Chief Mike Colucci reaches in the cockpit for the shifter as others try to rotate the rear tires. It appears to be a driveline problem.
As the race for 6 continues between Lammers, Price Cobb, and Sarl van der Merwe. Here they come, heading out onto the back straightaway. Right in front of them, that's the Hosmer probe. There comes the 44 Jaguar. And here comes the 52 Corvette of Sarl van der Merwe, moving past Price Cobb and challenging Lammers in turn 5 at the end of the straightaway, Steve.
I thought for a second that Brocky was going to get both of them in one fell swoop, but I think it's just a matter of time before he does indeed get the Nissan. Sarl van der Merwe, the South African rallyist and race car champion, is standing on the gas, and we know he's got the horsepower. Witness that 200-mile-an-hour straightaway clocking.
That's right. That big burst of speed up that hill with that big horsepower, that V6 Chevrolet engine paid off for him as he just blew past Price Cobb. And we'll see, though, a lot of guys say that this Nissan, this 83 car here driven by Jan Lammers, has more power than any other race car on the track, just raw horsepower. This is an interesting matchup. The Nissan has the 300 CX-based V6. The 52 Corvette you see right there has the V6 that is used in a lot of high-performance Chevrolet products. So both of these are production-based engines in these automobiles, twin-turboed, and making probably 700-plus horsepower in their race trim. And as these cars come around to complete yet another lap down the front straightaway, we'll see what Van der Merwe can do with the big horsepower of the Nissan, Steve.
Turn number 1, the most popular turn on this circuit for passing. But to pass, you got to get close enough to execute, and Sarl van der Merwe could not do it there.
Well, I don't know what's going on with Jan Lammers. He faltered in the early laps, but now he seems to be back with the program with that Nissan. And as these two cars head out onto the back straightaway, Steve, let's see what kind of horsepower Sarl van der Merwe can bring to bear with that 52 car.
Well, there it is. He smartly moves right around Jan Lammers and falls in line behind the 44 Jaguar of Bob Tullius. That will put the Corvette now in the 6th position. Remember, he started 15.
He is on the move, no question about it. As we watch them come toward the downhill left-hander called turn number 6, these 3 cars have been going at it for the entire race. But right now, Van der Merwe has moved out in front, maybe about 10 cars cars on Jan Lammers, Steve, as they head back up the hill out of turn number 7.
And right now, Lammers has a different view in his rear mirror, and that is Price Cobb, who is trying to take the 7th position away from him. Cobb has the line on the inside as they head down towards turn number 8. Under braking, he may get Lammers here. Yes, it is Price Cobb moving into that 7th spot.
So the mystery persists with the number 83 Nissan, and why Jan Lammers can't get that car to run as well as they did in practice, we don't understand. Here's another car that's not running as well as it did in practice either. That's the 67 Porsche 962 Jochen Mass, who remains in the automobile, ready to go. But let's go down to Steve and find out what the matter with that car is.
Brock, I'm with Jim Busby, who manages this team and was scheduled to co-drive the 67 car. And Jim, Mike Colucci and crew looking at the, looks like the transmission.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tragedy. This is the first time we've been really seriously competitive this year, and all of a sudden a bulletproof part like the Porsche transmission isn't working. So I'm not sure what it is, but he just can't select any gears at all.
I know you had gone out and qualified with your race setup, race tires, race boost, and felt that you'd move up pretty quickly.
Well, we were convinced that we could lead the race early on and run very conservatively in the lead. And then all of a sudden to have a normally bulletproof part like a Porsche transmission not work is just unheard of. So I guess it's bad luck for us again.
Thanks, Jim.
Been a tough season for the Busby team. They were very competitive last year, but so far this year, not as much luck at all. And once again, it bites them here at Watkins Glen without transmission failure. As we watch the number 44 Jaguar, Bob Julius, lead the number 52 Vandermeer car up the hill here, that Corvette. We saw him pass twice before, and here he goes again, blowing past the Jaguar, and here comes Price Cobb as well. So Bob Julius falls victim to a pair of turbo cars. Remember, Steve, now the Jaguars are the only normally aspirated automobiles among the faster running prototypes here at the Glen.
And they pack a lot more cubic inches in the turbocharged cars, but Bob Julius still doesn't feel they've got big enough engines. Well, here's a guy whose engine is performing flawlessly. That is the leader in the GT Light category, the super slippery little Fiero of Bob Earl. Now, Earl oftentimes will drive even very long races all by himself. Today, however, he has a driving partner, Chip Ganassi. And here you can see the interval. That was Earl leading the class. And here comes second place, Jim Downing. He'll be co-driving with John Baffucci. And we're riding with Downing right now. A good finish here could clinch the championship for him. He runs the rotary Mazda engine, which is almost goof-proof. Rocket seldom ever breaks.
Well, Jim has run them for years in the GTU category, the stock-bodied automobiles, and now after his move up to the GT Light category, he has just done such a good job. A real expert driver and engineer.
Well, there's the 16 car in Price Cobb. He is still trying to get around the Corvette. Here is Al Hobart. He's currently in the 3rd spot in the number 1 962 Porsche. And Al Hobart is coming into the pits, Brock. This is not a scheduled stop. Hobart is pitted in the very first space there. The crew ready and waiting for him. I'm sure he had radioed in. And you know, it appears that he cannot see out of that windshield.
You're absolutely right. That's the only thing being done to the race car. A quick stop for a windshield cleanup. That is a surprise and has changed the complexion of the race here at the New York Kodak.
We were back at Watkins Glen, New York, where the two BMWs, Davy Jones in 18, David Hobbs in 19, run 1 and 2. The Corvette started 15th, has moved up to the 3rd spot. Cyril Vandermeer passed Pete Holzmer while we were away. Bob Julius in the Jaguar starts the 2nd spot, followed by the Nissan, who has dropped back to the 7th spot.
And Al Hobart, Steve, after that quick stop, is all the way back to 10th, but I'm sure you'll see him back up amongst the leaders as he charges toward the front. Our other camera car, John Morton's number 68 Porsche 962, currently rides in the 11th spot as we watch John, an expert in this kind of racing, sweep through one of the quick turns here at Watkins Glen down the hill. That's turn 7 up ahead. That sweeping 180-degree corner at the bottom, kind of the lowest part of the racetrack. Here comes John up towards turn number 8. All kinds of horsepower needed here, Steve.
And it looks, Brock, like he is closing in a bit on the number 5 Porsche, James Weaver. Indeed he is. There is Weaver right in front of him.
Right. That is Bob Aiken's co-driver in the number 5 car. We saw win earlier this year in Sebring, Florida, in the 12-hour race. But right now, James appears to be having his problems because right behind him, John Morton moving in to challenge him for the 10th spot.
Weaver is now in the 10th position as Al Hobart has gotten around him, trying to make up the lost ground from that early pit stop for a clean windshield.
Well, you can be sure that Holbert will charge right now in that number 1 car. And remember now, his teammate back there in the number 14 automobile is Al Unser Sr. So there are a pair of Holbert Porsches in the top 10 right now.
Also a third driver, Garrick Bell, is standing by to take the wheel of the number 1 car, the number 14 car, or maybe both if he has to. They're very serious about clinching the championship here today at Watkins Glen. These great pictures are courtesy of BF Goodrich, makers of TA radials. We take on the road.
And more action on the ultra-fast back straightaway here at Watkins Glen. James Weaver, number 5, the 68 car of John Morton, and yet another Porsche of Jim Adams from California, fighting for that 11th overall spot here.
And there, moving on the inside, is Al Holbert. Holbert picks up 1 more position as he gets around Jan Lammers in the Nissan automobile. So that moves Al Holbert up to 8th position. Boy, he is driving the wheels off that car.
Well, he's got to, Steve, because there is a whole lot at stake for this Porsche team. As the number 1 962 Porsche of Al Holbert moves up towards turn number 8. Here comes the James Weaver number 5 Porsche. A whole fleet of Porsches there. The only non-Porsche is that Nissan of Jan Lammers in the middle.
Well, the number 68 car of John Morton is running in the 11th spot. He is trying to get around number 5, James Weaver. Weaver in the red car, just right in front of him there, is in 10th position.
So we've got these 3 Porsches kind of running nose to tail here as we watch Morton sweep through turn number 10, heading toward turn 11. That is Jim Adams there in that number 10 Porsche 962. As we said, a Californian, a real veteran of this kind of racing, does an excellent job. Very seldom puts a wheel wrong, a real steady competitor. And I think that will pay off here as this race continues.
Morton picking up just a little bit of ground on James Weaver in that red number 5 Porsche. Here comes Morton as they sweep up through the S's.
Boy, you can always count on John Morton to do a good job. Was a Trans Am champion way back in the early 1970s in the Datsun 510 cars that Peter Brock's team. Moved on to run Indy cars and sports cars, Can-Am automobiles, all kinds of road racing experience, and he always is in the hunt. A real steady driver, much like Jim Adams, too, Steve.
Indeed, Brock, they're not flashy. You don't see him try to slide these ground effects cars. They just run consistent quick lap times. And here, he tries to move in on Weaver, as Weaver got a little bit out of shape, but Weaver protected his flank very nicely.
Well, that was that off-camber turn number 6, and it's easy to get offline there, as we see Englishman James Weaver recover nicely there, though. He got way off line, and it gave Morton a little chance to slide underneath him, but these ground effects automobiles don't like to slide a whole lot, and James did a good job to recover.
Well, Bob Aiken, the owner of the number 5 car and co-driver, he likes to bring in the Europeans to take part in his team. Of course, Hans Stuck, the driver he prefers. Hans is busy in Germany this weekend, so we went to England for Weaver.
And Weaver noticed the bumps. This is a bumpy racetrack, Steve. You saw Weaver there. Look at this. This is the number 19 BMW driven by David Hobbs into the pits, and this is not, repeat, not a scheduled stop.
Oh, no way are you going to bring in the 2nd place car this early. A very dirty windshield. That could have been why. As long as he's there, certainly the crew is going to put some fuel on board. But really, no apparent explanation for the stop of the number 2 car, David Hobbs, the 19 BMW. And, of course, that will move Cyril van der Merwe in the 52 Corvette up into the 2nd position.
And these 2 cars, the 07 Pro of Pete Halsmer and the 16 Porsche of Price Cobb, move into the battle for the 3rd spot.
And Brock, David Hobbs is ready to leave his pit. IMSA officials will not allow him to go. They're inspecting the rear of the car. Maybe they suspicion it's leaking some fluids.
Oh, very possibly, but this means that these 2 guys, Halsmer and Cobb, are driving away from Hobbs, leaving him standing in the pit. Now, finally, yes, no, they stopped him again. Hobbs has got to be furious at this. There's an IMSA official saying, no, we're not going to let him go. We're going to find out what the problem is. So once again, the crew goes back to work at the rear of the car. There seems to be some, as you say, Steve, some kind of a feeling that this thing is leaking oil. Although, notice the crewman has a rag there, trying to clean whatever is maybe leaking. Finally underway, but a very frustrating stop for David Hobbs. Well, this is yet another major contender who stopped unexpectedly. First Holbert, then Moss, then now Hobbs, and even worse than that, we've had a major retirement. That's Scott Pruitt, and Steve is with him.
Well, unfortunately, Scott Pruitt's debut in a GTP car was a very short one. What happened, Scott?
Broke his shift linkage somewhere inside the gearbox.
So no engine problems, everything was fine other than The old 25-cent part story.
Yeah, right. That's about it, too. You know, everything was working well. I was starting to get accustomed to the car. It's the first time I was in it since I ran a GTO car yesterday. And unfortunately, on the second lap, that problem came about. But the crew did a great job putting the car together, and everything was working good, so unfortunate.
What were your impressions of the racing surface the short time that you were out there? Everything fine?
Everything seemed to be pretty good. You know, it takes a little longer to get the cars warmed up because the surface is so cold, but things are starting to come around. I was starting to give the Jaguar and the Coca-Cola car a little bit of a problem, and they had a problem.
We hope we see you again in one of these cars.
I hope so. Thanks.
Brock is in the BMW pits with a story on David Hobbs' early pit stop.
I'm with John Watson, David Hobbs, co-driver. And John, exactly what was that little brief interlude in the pits all about?
Well, I thought I might ask you because I was sitting watching the race, and David came into the pits. I had no idea why he came in. And,
well, we're a bit baffled. It seemed as if they said he was spraying some kind of water, and yet there's nothing apparent in the pits with the race car. It seemed to be in perfect shape when it came in.
I thought so, but again, I mean, I'm just a driver, and it's difficult sometimes to understand what happens at racetracks.
The mystery continues, as it were.
Well, I'm sure we can find part 3 and 4 to the serial somewhere along the line.
Well, we hope we discover it as the race goes on. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Oh, Brock, I love a mystery. We'll get to the bottom of all of this before we're done. But out on the racetrack, what kind of action we see? Here's the 44 car. That is the Jaguar of Bob Julian. And just behind him comes Al Holbert. Holbert had dropped clear back to 10th, is now trying to fight back to get the 5th position away from Tullius. Mr. Holbert is now 5th.
There you can see turbo versus normally aspirated. Whoa, look at this. That's Cyril Vandermeer coming off turn 6 and pinwheeling down the racetrack. Didn't hit anything, probably going to get back underway, but that's going to cost him some time and some very frayed nerves, believe me.
And also, it's going to cost him 4 tires. I guarantee you, they are so flat-spotted, they feel like they came off of a lumber truck in Saskatchewan. The Cyril Vandermeer-driven 52 Corvette is headed for the pits.
Back at the New York Kodak 500, I'm Brock Yates along with Steve Evans, and as Steve predicted, the number 52 Corvette of Cyril Vandermeer into the pits for a tire change and fuel after that wild spin coming off turn number 6. Also on board, the relief driver, Doc Bundy, who earlier in the show, remember, predicted that this car would charge to the front, and it was living up to its expectations until that spin. So there goes Doc, underway, trying to pick it back up. He's got a ways to go, though, because the car fell well back with that unexpected pit stop. And now let's go down to Steve Evans with Cyril Vandermeer.
Well, Cyril, I counted about 3 360s. How many from your standpoint?
I think I stopped counting after about 4. There was some oil there that on the outside, and I went a bit wide and just touched it. And that sent me spinning.
You know, earlier in the race, it looked like you might have hit some oil on the track, and the car got very sideways on you, and you saved it.
That was another oil spot at that point in time. The car was feeling good, and it was real comfortable out there.
Well, if the track is this oily this early, what's it going to be like later in the race?
I think it's going to get really interesting.
Indeed. Thank you, sir.
Well, he had a good look at the Watkins gun landscape after that. Here comes his co-driver, Doc Bundy, and right behind him is the number 19 car of David Hobbs. They are currently fighting for 12th spot, Steve, after that long, unexpected stop by both automobiles.
That's right. A spin on the part of the... Oh, and here comes the leader into the pits. This is the 18 BMW Young Davy Jones, the first car that we have seen come into the pits on purpose. This is a planned stop. The crew waiting for him. He'll get fuel, tires, and whatever else he needs.
Well, they better hustle, Steve, because they've got a serious competitor closing in on them. That's Pete Hallsmer in the 07 Mustang Cosworth-powered probe. There he is, and if he can pass the finish line before Davey gets back underway, he will take over the lead here.
Well, actually, it won't be Davey. There was a driver change involved. In fact, it's still going on. John Andretti, also 22 years old, nephew of Mario Andretti, slips into that car. Hallsmer is closing ground. They've got to get that machine out of the pits if they want to hold on to the lead.
And here comes Pete Hallsmer, wailing off turn 8, heading up toward turn number 9. Only a couple of more corners left on this racetrack. And right now, John Andretti still getting buckled up. You can see Davy Jones, his co-driver, helping him get hooked up in that race car. This has been a problem for this team on a couple of other races this year, Steve.
It has with the number 19 car. Here comes Pete Halsmer. Halsmer coming out of turn number 11 on to the pit straightaway and leaving the pit. That is John Andretti. Can he exit the pits and hang on to the lead, or will he have to fall in line behind the V8 probe? It is going to be John Andretti getting out in front of the probe, but Halsmer will have to make a scheduled stop sooner or later anyway. Even if he'd gotten the lead, I feel it would have been short-lived.
Well, not much margin, though, for error. Here comes John Andretti, the leader, and that is the 07 Ford Probe of Pete Halsmer right behind him at second spot.
Boy, Ford would have loved to have led even one lap, and maybe they will before the day is over, because remember, we told you earlier, that is the debut of the Mustang Probe with the V8 Cosworth engine installed. And challenging is Halsmer, but not enough. Right now, Brock is in the BMW pits with Davy Jones.
Well, Davey, super work. Race car seems to be working just fine.
Thank you, Brock. It feels terrific to lead like that. You know, the crew can just give you a plus, and you don't have to, you can just concentrate on what you're doing. And the track's very slippery, but other than that, we didn't have any problems.
Did you see Searle spin behind you, or were you far enough ahead so you didn't see that? We understand he took a pretty good spin.
I didn't see that, no. But when we came in, our driver change was a little slow because one of our things that snaps on, it slipped out, so it took a little bit longer time, so that's why we went down to fourth. But hopefully we can bring it back up.
Oh, yeah. Did you tell John anything in particular?
Not really. I just told him that it's a little bit slippery and you know, just stand on it.
Okay, good deal. I hope you guys continue.
Thank you. Thanks, Brock.
Well, it sounded like Davy Jones really doesn't know that his teammate John Andretti is out there in the lead ahead of the 07 car, the Mustang Pro DFP with Pete Halsmer at the wheel. When Halsmer pits, there'll be a driver change. In fact, here comes the Probe. The second place car coming into the pits, a planned stop, Brock.
Right, and the man who will take over is his co-driver. There you see him, Tom Gloy, snapping open the door. He'll help Pete out. Here comes Pete. Here comes the third place car as well, Steve. That's the 16 car of Bryce Cobb, and his car owner and co-driver Rob Dyson will take over for him.
And here is the Probe still getting its pit service. This is routine maintenance, getting tires, getting fuel. The drivers take great pride if they can get their exchange done before the crew is finished. And it appears that Halsmer and Gloy have done that. Now Dyson is still trying to get buckled up in that car. Bryce Cobb helping him out.
So we've got a good race here in the pits. This is a terrific contest between these two teams. There comes the Probe down off it there, jags. There, now they're being held up for a minute, Steve. Looked like he was ready to go. IMSA official one more time, just as happened with Hobbs earlier. They say, he's not going to move.
Pete Halsmer looking on a little bit of disbelief. He and Dawson, the crew chief, said, wait a minute, what's going on here? We haven't done anything wrong. And meanwhile, trying to bash the fiberglass back into place. That's the 16 car. Rob Dyson is on board. He wants to pick up a position to get up first. Now Halsmer involved. Saying, and Tom Gloy wants to move, even if he has to drive over that man.
It's fierce here in the pit. As Rob Dyson gets underway and moves out ahead of his arch rival down the pit lane, the 07 Mustang Probe, and they're still sitting there. As the engine cover comes up, Halsmer goes around to take a look. Look at that puddle there, Steve. It looks like they may be right. Maybe that thing is leaking a little bit.
Frustrating stuff here. 1 minute you're challenging for the lead. The next minute you can see the frustration there from the crew. The next minute you're being held in the pits when the driver's in there just gassing it.
I wonder why the car wasn't black flag rather than waiting for it to stop and then check it out. But nonetheless, Rob Dyson back out on the racetrack in the 16 car. That's his own. He owns it. And he's underway. Here is John Andretti, and now being challenged, Steve, by Al Holbert in the #1 Porsche.
He is, Brock, and the Probe is finally rolling. Tom Gloy able to finally let the clutch out and get back into this battle. And he knows what his job is to try to make up for it. All of the time they lost in the pits, a significant blow to the Probe's effort. But out on the racetrack, look at this. Al Holbert coming up on John Andretti. That is a fight for first place, and it is Holbert taking Andretti. He does it on the inside of turn number 5. Al Holbert, despite that early, very short stop for a cleaner windshield, has taken the lead. And let's remember that both of these cars are eligible for that $40,000 bonus we talked about earlier. Let's go to Brock in the pits. He's with the man who just scrambled out of the 16 car.
I'm with Bryce Cobb, who just got out of the number 16 car. And Bryce, you look like you're working pretty hard. The race car looked like it's been working hard too. It's all covered with rubber dust up front. What was going on out there?
Well, you know, everything was going pretty smoothly, Brock, until I got behind Pete Halsman, the V8, and it was leaking real bad oil. And it was really getting to where I couldn't see where I was going unless I was right behind him. The other problem is he was being extremely wide. It's getting to the point of being ridiculous, but so be it. It is a race. So, and he wasn't doing anything dangerous. So I tried twice to get by him and was not successful. He could outrun us in sort of the mid-range, and I could just run with him on the top end. So it made for a pretty interesting race because I'd reel him in some of the turns, and he'd take me away again, getting up to the top speed.
You'll see that man back at the wheel of the 16 car before it's over. There is the leader, Al Holbert, the number 1 Porsche 962. Just behind him, John Andretti trying to get his lead back for BMW. The Jag running a strong third, yet to pit. Jim Adams in another Porsche. John Morton in the 68 Porsche in the 5th spot. 6th through 10th looks like this, but bear in mind some have pitted and some haven't. Lommers in the Nissan car, David Hobbs, the other BMW, Doc Bundy trying to make up for lost time with the 52 Corvette, Rob Dyson with the Porsche, and Hurley Haywood in that 10th slot. And there's the leader, Al Holbert, who could clinch the series championship. John Andretti. Oh, and here is Holbert's other car. The 14 machine has been brought into the pits by Al Unser Sr., and they apparently have some big problems. The motor has been turned off. And each crewman seems to be looking in a different location trying to find the problem. Al Unser Sr. was hoping for a victory in this car, as his son had at Road America.
More troubles for the Nissan. Remember, that's Jan Lommers, who's had really a slow go of it all afternoon. Now he's parked out between turns 7 and 8 here at Watkins Glen with apparently out of gas. I'm Brock Yates along with Steve Evans. This is the New York Kodak 500. And among the leaders, everybody except Al Holbert and David Hobbs back there in third have made their routine stops and driver changes. Holbert and Hobbs, remember, made quick stops for trouble earlier in the going and took on fuel, so they have yet to make a driver change, Steve.
And we have a tremendous battle going on for the 3rd position. David Hobbs, the 19 BMW, is in 3rd. Just behind him is Doc Bundy, number 52 in the Corvette that spun earlier with driver Cyril van der Merwe. And look at Bundy closing right up on the BMW. He is going to get around Hobbs. The Corvette moves into 3rd spot. They are having a great day, even with some problems.
Well, that thing just blasts up that back straightaway, Steve. The quickest speed of all the race cars, and it pays off for Bundy and van der Merwe. This is Tom Gloy, currently in the 10th spot, back in the pits for yet another stop on that 07 Ford Probe.
That is the car that was held in the pits on its earlier stop, you recall, for some leakage problem, they say. And apparently that continues. Now, the car's still not going to leave. Well, finally, he will go back out.
Very frustrating. Remember, those guys were in contention for the lead as we watch Al Holbert come in the number 1 Porsche 962. A well-disciplined pit crew here. Always very quick, among the very quickest stops.
And that man is now back in the lead. John Andretti in the 18 BMW is your new leader, and there is no driver change in the Holbert pits. Holbert stays in the car probably to conserve some time, not risk making any mistake in a driver exchange. Holbert stays in, gets a clean windscreen for the 2nd time today, tires, fuel, and sets out after John Andretti.
This is a very difficult racetrack to run on in these very cramped, very hot race cars. And Al Holbert, who has talked about retiring and taking over running the Porsche racing operation in the United States, carries on. As we watch the number 44 Jaguar of Chip Robinson and Bob Tullius in the pits for an extended stop. It looks as if the crew's working on the oil cooler up front there, Steve.
Well, they're not working on it, Brock. They are completely replacing the oil cooler, so they might have had a little shutout there with somebody.
It's very possible. It's getting rough. As we said earlier, there's a lot of oil in this racetrack. Oh, the 68 Porsche 962 of Darren Brasfield and John Morton has now retired. That puts both of Busby's cars out.
It does indeed, and nothing smokes like that except for a blown engine. They hurt that one badly.
That's a really tough break for that team who came in here with high hopes as we watch the GT Light automobiles out here. That is the Jim Downing car, the number 63 automobile. Remember, Jim is in search of a driving championship in here in this class, although Bob Earl and David Loring are currently ahead of him. Earl, of course, in that Pontiac Fiero. David Loring, one of the fine young drivers in this class. Loring was slated for stardom in the middle 1970s in Formula 4. It's an excellent young driver. And then he got kind of sidetracked. But now his career is on the upswing again. As we receive word from the pits of Jim Downing that a shot out there has hurt our camera. So we've lost the camera, not only in the 63 Mazda, but in the number 68 Porsche 962. So we're kind of flying blind right now. But we still got 13 cameras working here at the Glen. And now let's go to Steve with Derek Bell.
I must say, things seem to be going swimmingly for that particular car. I'm a little surprised you didn't get in.
Yeah, I don't know why. Perhaps he wants to do the whole race on his own. We have to make another stop, and rather than me sort of just do a whole, you know, a long run of like sort of 45 laps, he's just doing a short one now, and then I'll get in. There might be yellow, there might be any reason, and I can then take advantage of a yellow situation. If there isn't, well, I just get in probably in 10 laps time.
Be careful, will you, when you get out there? We hear there's quite a bit of oil on that racetrack.
I'm sure there is, yeah. We got most of it on our windshield. That's where he came in the first place. But the car's going like a dream at the moment.
Thanks, Derek.
If you want a man ready to make a last few lap charge to win, Derek Bell would be your choice. All right, here comes the David Hobbs, John Watson, number 19 BMW in. This is the scheduled stop. Watson getting ready to relieve Hobbs. Remember, they stopped a little earlier and for an unscheduled visit to the pits, but right now the driver change is being completed. Remember now, these guys lost a race in Portland earlier when they couldn't get the belts buckled up, and they've been practicing hard since then.
And there is a number 16 car driven by Rob Dyson. He benefits most from David Hobbs and John Watson's pit stop. That has moved that car all the way up to the 4th position. And if you talk to Rob, if you could right now, I think he'd be very satisfied with that. Here is John Watson down off the air jack. Out of the pits goes the 19 car with a good quick stop, skating around just a little bit. A former Formula 1 star from Northern Ireland. John Watson back out on the racetrack. The BMW team doing a fine job today, particularly the teammate car number 18. Right now, let's go down to the BMW pits. Brock Yates is there to talk to the fellow who just got out of this car, David Hobbs.
David, maybe you can clear up the mystery. We've been trying to figure out what that initial stop was all about, and have you any idea?
Well, we had some tape over the radiator because the weather is so cold today compared to what it has been, and this morning in warm-up it took some warming up, so we put a bit of tape on and obviously overdid it, and I came in to have the tape taken off because the thing was running hot. The IMSA official, in a typical fashion, obviously, who's supposed to be a technical guy, obviously he's got about as much technical knowledge as your little finger, and made sure the car was held until we'd cured whatever was coming out. Well, what was coming out was water. And the longer we stayed there running the engine without the car moving, the more water came out.
Sure.
But, you know, so, give a guy a suit and a hat, what can you do?
That's it, and a whistle.
Yeah, right.
What, other than that, the race car's running fine?
No, because unfortunately, during that first stint, it obviously threw a lot of its water out. Although it's stabilized now, it's stabilized high. And so every time you try and run it really fast, it overheats. So you've got to really pace yourself.
Brock, a big problem in turn 11 for the number 93 GT light car of Don Marsh. He has crashed and crashed hard. That has brought out a yellow flag, not just in that corner, but all the way around this 3.37-mile circuit. Remember, Derek Bell said earlier, if we get a yellow, we'll bring the car in for a driver change. There you see it happening. Very alertly, Al Holbert dashes into the pits. The driver change just now being completed. Holbert taking a few seconds for some instructions to Derek Bell, no doubt telling him where the crash is out on the course. The door is latched down, and Derek Bell heads up. Al Holbert is hung up in the door of that. Oh! And Holbert takes a tumble as Derek Bell exits the pit. His crew right there to see if the boss is okay. He appears really to be more upset than he is hurt. Al Holbert is just fine, Brock.
He had to unlatch that door, though, to get loose, as the field is under caution here at Watkins Glen. Under green at Watkins Glen, but we've had a flurry of pit stops. Derek Bell came in to relatch the door that caused the problem with Al Holbert. Davy Jones has taken over for John Andretti. Bryce Cobb for Rob Dyson. John Watson in the number 4 BMW, and Cyril Vandermeer is in for Doc Bundy in the Corvette. We've got 3 GT light cars, 8, 9, and 10 among the top 10 automobiles. Bob Earl leading the GT light category. But the Downing Mafucci car has fallen back to 4th. And now, let's go to Steve Evans in the pits with Al Holbert.
Oh, boy. That was close. Having to come back in and latch that door. Could have been worse. It could have been under green.
Well, for sure. But, you know, we need a good Swift and kicking it behind because we've been wrestling with that door all weekend. And, you know, I've got more experience with loose doors than anybody in the world, having them come off twice in Le Mans. very sensitive to it.
Well, you made 2 visits here you hadn't planned. One for a windshield you couldn't possibly see out of it, and now for the door problem.
Yeah, early on, it was so bad I couldn't see it, and I tried the wipers knowing that usually makes it worse. There were some raindrops, I hope maybe, but it didn't, and I just figured I'm going to lose too much time or crash.
Well, you got a world-class driver out there now. He might put it together for you.
Well, I think we had it in hand. If we can keep the plan going, nothing happens.
Thanks, Al.
All right, there's a young Charger right behind Derek Bell, though, in that #1 Porsche, and that is Davy Jones, who has run so hard here this weekend. So these 2 guys are right in the hunt, and right behind them, Steve Evans, is Bryce Cobb. And you can never forget him. He's coming so quickly in this sport. That Bryce Cobb running a very strongly prepared #16 Porsche. And here comes Davy Jones challenging for the lead down the front straightaway.
Davy Jones passes Derek Bell with a great deal of authority. But, Brock, we understand from that pit that car cannot go the distance. They don't feel it can on the fuel on board. They're going to have to make somewhere a little splash and dash kind of a stop. Derek Bell, on the other hand, he might be able to go all the way with his current fuel load.
So we've got 3 cars in the chase for the lead. Davy Jones clearly trying to open out a little bit. If, in fact, that is the case, he may try to get himself something of a cushion as he's ducking in behind some of the slower GT Light cars, holding on to the lead at the end of the long straightaway. Davy Jones, a Charger all the way. Derek Bell, of course, one of the coolest heads in the sport. He will probably sit back there and wait until the closing laps to take a shot at Davy.
A terrific race going on for the 3rd spot in the GT Lights. The 79 car was Skeeter McKittrick and 63 John Mafucci. Whoa! And we have got to spin that as Mafucci. He has spun down in turn #1, and that may well ruin the chances for his co-driver, Jim Downing, of clinching the GT Light championship here. But with the fiberglass flapping on the left front, John Mafucci back out onto the racetrack. They'll no doubt head for the pits, Brock.
Oh, that's a tough break for Jim Downing in particular as Mafucci recovers. Here comes the #16 car, Bryce Cobb, and he, too, has moved past Derek Bell, pushing Derek back into 3rd spot. So Bryce Cobb now charging. Now up ahead of him, you see the #18 BMW, Davy Jones. Let's see whether Bryce can reel him in. We'll be back with more from Watkins Glen.
Concern earlier about overheating problems with the 19 car. Well, John Watson has brought it into the pit. It may be out of the race. I'm Steve Evans with Brock Yates. And Brock, this New York Kodak 500 has turned out to be one of the best IMSA races of the year. Hard luck for these guys, but they can take heart. Their teammate, car #18, with young Davy Jones, is in the lead.
He sure is, and he's moved way out, trying to put a cushion on that lead as yet another youngster from Texas, Bryce Cobb, sits in the 2nd spot behind him, the veteran Derek Bell. And we've seen yet more of the movement on the part of the GT Light category. Bob Earl now up into the 7th spot, Steve. So a bunch of GT Light cars here moving, partially because of the attrition of their big prototype.
And let's remember, we mentioned earlier, the crew tells us that before this race is over, that car, the leader, #18, will have to come in just for a few seconds for maybe 5-6 gallons of gasoline. On which lap will that occur? And can they get a stop quick enough to keep them in the lead?
Well, 10 laps left as we watch the leader come up through the S's. Remember, this is a 2.1-liter, 4-valve, 4-cylinder BMW engine developed for Grand Prix racing and used in these prototypes. Now, they are very powerful engines for a very small displacement, but they use a lot of fuel. So, Davey, notice him right over those bumps as he goes into turn #5 at the end of the straightaway. Holding on to a very stout lead right now, but that could immediately disappear if he dives into the pits for maybe only a few gallons of fuel. So this is going to be an interesting race right to the end.
Another interesting race happening 23 seconds behind the leader is this one for 2nd spot. #16, Bryce Cobb, doing a brilliant job of holding off the #1 Porsche with Derek Bell. Bell, of course, with 2 decades more experience than Bryce Cobb, but you'd never know it right now. But whoa, and getting just a little sideways, maybe just a little too eager, is Derek Bell.
Well, you can be sure these guys are really trying because they, too, possibly could have to make a late race pit stop. We're not really sure. We haven't found out from their crews, but fuel is definitely becoming a major factor with all of the 3 lead cars. As we watch Bryce Cobb dive through turn #8 and head up toward turn 9. He's put a little bit of a distance on Derek Bell. Of course, we've got about 9 laps left, and that's a long way. That's over almost 30 miles. So there's plenty of room for Derek Bell, or plenty of time for him to move up. But right now, Bryce Cobb seems to be extending his lead with that second place car, the number 16 Porsche of Rob Dyson, as they head down the front straightaway.
Well, only the drivers know about the available power, but watching Brock right now, especially through the turns, it appears to me that Bryce Cobb has the better handling portion. Bell's car looks to be a bit loose.
Well, it's very possible that these chassis can get really strange here as we watch Derek slide off turn number 1. This is a bumpy racetrack, and that can do a lot to the suspension settings in a long race like this.
And there's our leader, Davy Jones, the number 18 BMW. He is just behind the 6th place Porsche of Jim Adams. If he gets around Adams, he will have put him a lap down. And this should be the lap on which the leader comes in for a little bit of fuel. A very quick stop, a splash and dash, they call it, or a gas and go, take your pick. But it should come on this lap.
Well, Davy Jones has got his hands full because he's only got a 23-second cushion over Bryce Cobb and Derek Bell. Davy, an interesting young man. He's only 22, but he's a real racing veteran. And yet, again, Steve, one of the young drivers that's come out of Super B competition, like Al Unser Jr. and Michael Andretti and so many of the young stars in racing today. So he's a pretty poised veteran, even though he is a very young man in chronological age. So it'll be interesting to see if Davy can stand the pressure. Bryce Cobb, also a young driver, seems to be doing just fine under pressure from one of the best endurance drivers in the world. Derek Bell, here he comes. Davy Jones into the pits.
And don't you know that crew is ready? Gas cans in hand. It should only take 10, 12, maybe 15 seconds to get the gas into the car. But it's all of the getting in and getting out of the pits that consumes so much time. All right, here comes Bryce Cobb, the number 16 car. Derek Bell riding in the 3rd spot. Can they get around? Can Bryce Cobb take the lead before Davy Jones gets out of the pits?
They're coming down the front straightaway right now, Steve. That's Bryce Cobb heading for turn 1. And look at this, Davy Jones' car is stalled. They bump started the car. He's back underway, but there goes Cobb and Derek Bell heading up for turn number 2 as Davy Jones accelerates down pit lane.
What an inopportune time for the engine to stall. He might have maintained the lead without that. The big question now, does young Davy Jones have the poise to reel in Derek Bell and Bryce Cobb? We know he's got the horsepower.
With 6 laps to go here at the New York Kodak 500, the tough young Texan Bryce Cobb leads it in his number 16 Porsche. Right behind him, the veteran Derek Bell. And in 3rd place, the BMW driver Davy Jones, who had to give up the lead in a quick pit stop just a few laps back.
And checking up on the GT Light Division, Bob Earl in the Pontiac Fiero. He's back in the car and leading the class. You know what we don't know, Brock, is the fuel situation as far as particularly Bryce Cobb is concerned.
Well, it's going to be interesting, Steve. Remember now, Derek Bell and Al Holbert have made a couple of unscheduled stops, and each time a little dollop of fuel is put on board. They may be all right. Bryce Cobb and Rob Dyson, only 2 scheduled stops. Who's to know about them? Davy Jones, we know that he's got enough fuel, or at least we think we do. He just stopped a couple of laps back. So he's going to charge hard and try to pull in these 2 guys. So right now, Bryce Cobb, as he heads down toward turn number 6, that's straight away toward turn 7, he leads it. Derek Bell doesn't seem to be able to move in on him, though.
No, but moving in on Derek Bell is Davy Jones. Here you see Jones in the BMW. He is noticeably picking up ground steadily on the 2nd place car, Derek Bell. But Bell is unable to make any ground on the leader, Bryce Cobb.
So the man of the hour right now is Davy Jones. We're just down the road, as you said, in McGraw, New York. His father owns a ski area. They have their own private ski area where he keeps it cheap. You can be sure during the off-season. As Davy Jones rides in almost on the rear spoiler now of Derek Bell. Derek trying hard. See that race car all over. That may have some handling problems, Steve. It just does. Derek Bell doesn't drive like that normally.
No, he does not. This is a Mr. Smooth in any kind of endurance race car. In fact, the world endurance champion along with Hans Stuck. And there goes the leader. That is Bryce Cobb. There you see Bell. And closing steadily that 22-year-old fired up youngster in a BMW.
He's taken about a second a lap off as he moves down through turn number 1 and heads toward the S's, and he's definitely got his sights on Derek Bell. We're heading out up toward the back straightaway where big horsepower comes into play. We see the Corvette work so strongly up and through here. Let's see what that BMW can do against the 962 Porsches.
Well, at this point in the circuit, Brock, not much. He is not gaining any ground whatsoever here. There you see the second place car through your screen, and here comes the third place car, and that, of course, is Davy Jones. One thing we know for sure, Price Cobb, the man in the lead there, he's not going to crack under this kind of pressure. A very calm, cool, collected race car driver. Derek Bell, of course, world-renowned, but you have to wonder a little bit about Davy Jones. And just as nervous as Jones must be right now would be his co-driver, John Andretti. Brock is down in the pits with him.
What do you think, John?
Well, if anybody can do it, Davey will pull it off. He's right there with Derek, and when I was out there running behind Al, I could run pretty steady and easily, fairly easily keep up with him. So I don't know how hard he was driving, but I know Derek's going to give him a run for his money.
Well, I'll tell you what, the folks are loving it.
Well, I'm enjoying it too, but I'd rather be the car in front.
We don't blame you. Good luck, John.
Thanks a lot, Brock.
And look at this. There is a challenge from Derek Bell now for the lead. Derek Bell sandwiched between Price Cobb in the lead, Davy Jones in the BMW, and it is Bell. Derek swings outside in turn number 11, hoping to outmuscle Price Cobb down the long pit straightaway. Now it is Bell ducking down inside. And there is John Andretti showing the pit board to Davy Jones. A little optimistic. He's not in position 2 yet, John. And how about Derek Bell? Bell going down inside in turn 1. He outbreaks Price Cobb. Davy Jones tries to get under Cobb, cannot do it. Derek Bell takes the lead. Price Cobb now second. And that might have been a little disconcerting for Davy Jones. Maybe didn't think that old Derek quite had that much left, Brock.
Well, Davy had to get on the brakes a little hard to avoid Price Cobb, and he falls back as we watch Derek Bell move past the GT Light leader. That's the Bob Earl Fierro, as all 3 leaders move past. So you can see the difference in speed between those 2 classes right there. As Derek Bell sweeps through turn 5, right behind him, Price Cobb, and trying to make up that lost ground that he lost in turn number 1 in that little flurry is Davy Jones. But look at Steve Jones. That BMW really works well in this tight stuff. It doesn't seem to have any more speed than the Porsches up that long straightaway. But boy, Jones really gets through these corners well.
Oh yes, and Davy himself doing a fine job. That's just a good combination. That well-handling BMW and a very aggressive young driver trying to make amends with that awful crash in a written-off race car at Road America. And here comes Davy. Davy going underneath Price Cobb. Davy Jones is on the march now.
Boy, did he put a move on Price. Just outbraked him into turn number 8 in a very, very daring move, as Price, though very poised under pressure, moved in, didn't get in his way, and they could have taken them both out at that point. Price Cobb did a good job there. Here comes Jones through turn 10, carrying a lot of speed down toward turn number 11. Steve, he may challenge on the front straightaway.
And here they come out onto that pit straight. There's John Andretti and crew, and they woolly past Derek Bell. That and a whole lot of horsepower. Thumbs up for Davy Jones as he moves down into turn number 1. But he knows better than to get complacent now. Derek Bell just behind him, will never give up.
Well, now John Andretti's going to have to change that pit road again, as Price Cobb did stop for fuel. The number 16 car had to make that quick stop, so he falls back. He probably will not be able to challenge for the lead. So now it's a 2-car race for victory here at Watkins Glen. The leader, Davy Jones. Right behind him, though, the veteran Derek Bell.
That great 2-car battle between Davy Jones and the BMW. Derek Bell of the Porsche continues. Brian Redmond has moved all the way up to the 5th position, even though he started way back in 14th in the Jaguar.
And Steve, the second group in the top 10 becoming dominated by the GT Light cars. Bob Earl still leading that class in the 7th spot.
And here comes our leader, the 18 BMW. He puts yet another lap on Brian Redmond, who has been co-driving the 04 Jaguar along with Hurley Haywood. A fine performance, even though they had to go to their smaller motor. And even though Price Cobb had to come in for that little bit of fuel, he maintained that 3rd position.
So Davy Jones unreels yet another lap here. Only a few more to go for the young man from McGraw, New York. Price Cobb back in the 3rd spot, trying to make up that distance. Very disappointing, I'm sure, to have to dive into the pits. But Davy had to do the same thing, so it's all evening out. The only man yet to stop among this group is Derek Bell in the number 1 car, still sitting back there in 2nd. But Davy has really blown past everybody. He's just extending that lead right now, and I'm sure the guys in the pits are saying, whoa, Davy, oh, look at this, Steve. Bell's in.
Bell is in, apparently just for fuel, much like Price Cobb did and Davy before that. Derek needs a very quick stop, and he got one. He is trying to hang on to that 2nd position. Price Cobb comes thundering down the pit straightaway. Here is Derek Bell still on pit row. Who will get out of turn number 1 first? It is going to be Price Cobb. Price Cobb takes over second position from Derek Bell, but way out in front of both of them is your leader, Davy Jones,
who fell back to third. Remember when he had to make a quick stop for fuel. So all three of these contending cars here in the later stages of the race, they had to make quick stops. So Price Cobb regains second place after Derek Bell makes his last stop. So it's been a real flurry of stops that have changed the complexion of this race very late in the going, Steve.
And we are currently, Brock, on the next to the last lap, and the big race right now possibly will be between, yes, Price Cobb and Derek Bell. David Jones, of course, if he doesn't have any mechanical problems, could win it the way we see it. But what about Price Cobb and Derek Bell?
Well, right now, Price has moved way out. Derek, remember, got out of the pit slowly, and he just didn't carry as much speed up through the S's in the straightaway. So that has handicapped him considerably, and proves once again that a pit stop costs a lot more than just the time when you're stopped, actually.
Indeed, just getting in and out of the pits, the slowdown and the start up eats up valuable seconds. But there is Price Cobb running in that second position, and there is your leader, Davy Jones. Davy with a good, strong lead right now over Price Cobb in second. And there's his co-driver, John Andretti, saying, take it easy, Davy. Let's not blow it now. Remember, that car is eligible for the $40,000 bonus we talked about earlier. It has not been in the winner's circle all season long. Brock is in the pits with their crew chief.
How about Kirk Rohrig of the BMW team? And Kurt, does Davy know that both the Porsches had to make the stop?
Yeah, we just radioed him on the radio, and he knows that they're both in, so he's just going to take it easy. It's really fantastic. The BMW power plant and the car's been perfect all day. We're really thrilled. We got great balance in the car. Davy's done a great job. And one of the things that's really great about this team, the thing that's made the difference in the comeback, is the crew. Both these young drivers are part of the crew, not separate.
Well,
it's great.
It's a great show, and our congratulations. We just hope he makes it around, but I'm sure he will, Kurt. We're hanging on.
Davy Jones is on the last lap of the New York Kodak 500, and the crew he was referring to, they're from the great McLaren organization.
Carrying the name of the late great race driver Bruce McLaren, who that team victories in Can-Am, Formula One, GT prototype in Indianapolis. And right now, maybe, Steve, after 7 or 8 years of drought here in IMSA competition, they may have their first victory.
And there is the second place driver, Price Cobb, but Derek Bell starting to challenge for that second spot. Bell down on the inside, ever sneaking up on Price Cobb. We've still got one tremendous race. And there is Bell. He is going to, and Price Cobb has got some problems, Brock. It acts like it might be out of fuel.
Well, look, whatever, he's lost second place to Derek Bell. As this young man, the checkered flag is out for Davy Jones. Off turn 11, he's headed for victory.
And this crew goes crazy. The M team just thoroughly enjoying their first ever contemporary win with the BMW team. Davy Jones wins it. Now, Derek Bell, he will cross the line in the second position, and that will score enough points to clinch the IMSA title for his teammate Al Holbert. Look at that BMW crew hoisting John Andretti on their shoulders already.
Well, it's been a while. Frustrating season for them up to now as Derek Bell crosses the line to take second place. And as you say, give Al Holbert his IMSA GT championship. Boy, is this a happy bunch here down the other end of the pits with the BMW guys. They are so pleased. They've worked so hard all year long. Price Cobb finally coasts across the line in third spot. We'll find out what happened to him. You may be right, Steve. It could be just not enough fuel went on board to get him across the line.
But there is the man of the moment, Davy Jones. Of course, he shares that honor with John Andretti, but it was Davy who drove the majority of the race and put the BMW in the winner's circle. We'll be back to talk with him. Davy Jones, John Andretti. Collective age 44, equaling the man who was chasing him, Derek Bell. They have won, put BMW in the winner's circle for the first time since '79. Congratulations, young man.
Yeah, thank you very much. I tell you, it wasn't easy. Everything went smoothly, but there could have been things that had gone wrong.
Your heart must have stopped when the motor did on that last splash and gas pit stop.
Well, it did. But I knew I had one more lap to do and come in for pits. But I tell you, I was just fortunate that Derek must have had a problem with his #1 Lowenbrow, because we got by him easy enough.
Indeed you did. And congratulations to you, John Andretti.
I really appreciate it. Davey did a marvelous job all weekend with setting the track record and qualifying, sitting on the pole, and then he just did such a fantastic job. I'm proud to be associated with him.
You know how much money you guys won today? How would you like to hear almost $70,000? You picked up the $40,000 bonus.
They didn't tell us about that.
Yeah, for good reason, I think.
I tell you, I was driving from my heart and for the team, and as well as BMW. You know, money is all part of it, but we're here just to do what we did today. And thanks, Eric, I tell you.
And you now can put that incident Road America completely behind you.
Well, I tell you, you know, John did his job. He kept it in the lead, and you know, everything just went very smoothly, and he drove his heart out, and it just made it a wonderful day for us.
Again, congratulations. There's two shining faces you're going to see for a long, long time in motorsports. Let's go to Brock with the second-place finisher.
Al, did you have to make, did you expect that you were going to have to make that one last stop for that splash of fuel, or had the caution not slowed things down, you might have been able to go the distance on just the 3 stops?
Well, what happened was early on, about 7 laps in, one of the cars in front of me, and there were only 2, oiled my windshield so bad that I couldn't see, and it was a difficult decision, but I came in. That caused us an extra stop. But really, the last caution, about 1 tank from the end, put us all back on even ground. I had made up all that ground on the BMW, and we were going to have. Bottom line is we would have won by a good margin, everything being equal the way it ended up. But it was okay. I mean, they deserve. They're working hard. They're fast, and I'm glad our Lowenbrow Porsche has won the championship anyhow.
Well, our congratulations to obviously a wonderful season and a magnificent race that I must say all the people come to watch. We saw you at Elkhart Lake, and you pretty much dominated there. But this was a show that even though you didn't win it, you have to feel that overall the sport benefits from terrific competition like this.
Oh, it sure does, especially when we can race for it. That was quite thrilling at the end with 3 guys going for it right on the last lap, and the fuel being part of the strategy of the race. It makes it particularly interesting. And Derek was trying to stretch it. The cold weather, we didn't take the we didn't compromise and scrimp on the fuel like maybe we could have in retrospect. But it's good. It's a good series. It's very lively. There's good money now, and Camel and Porsche and Lowenbrow make me real happy.
And you're a great champion and a great sportsman. Thanks, Al. Congratulations to you.
Thanks. Bye.
And now let's go to Steve with Price Cobb.
While they're spraying champagne in the winner's circle, the third-place finisher is stranded down here in turn number 1, and I don't have to ask the problem, do I?
No, I think it's pretty obvious. We ran out of fuel 2 or 3 corners before the end after having topped up. Unfortunately, I think we're all in such a hurry that we left, you know, 5 seconds too early.
Well, it should have been a beautiful sight at one point there towards the latter part of the race, just when the 18 car, the BMW, Davy Jones, went into the pit. You thought, it's mine.
Yeah, I knew that if it didn't run out of fuel, it was mine. I was concerned about the fuel the entire time because of the yellow. It put us in really too early. I leaned the motor down and ran for the best I could, and it just wasn't good enough.
A terrific effort today.
Well, I hope the fans enjoyed it. We were certainly happy to be here. Qualified 13th, not quite where I wanted, but the car was very easy to drive. Excuse me, and I knew if we could do those times in the race, which we almost did, consistently, we'd be right there, and sure enough.
By the way, your car owner and co-driver, Rob Dyson, he left for the airport with 20 laps to go. He has no idea what happened wherever he is.
Right, that's too bad, because I sure wish Rob were here. He's done a heck of a job all year, put up with a lot, and I'm glad to be here.
Indeed. Thanks for a great race.
Thanks a lot.
Our congratulations to Price Cobb and to Bob Earl, who won the GT Light category in his number 24 Pontiac Fiero. It's been a great day of racing here at Watkins Glen with a terrific final lap shootout. Davy Jones and John Andretti win it. Bob Earl, Chip Ganassi win it in GT Light. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brock Yates along with Steve Evans.
The executive producer of Diamond P Sports is Harvey M. Palish. Produced and directed by John B. Mullen. This special presentation of American Sports Cavalcade has been brought to you by BF Goodrich TA Radials, built for you to take on the road. And by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? And by Lowenbrow, brewed in the great beer drinking countries of the world. This world calls for Lowenbrow. American Sports Cavalcade is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.